Coming up on Aging Matters, companionship and intimacy.
Loneliness is not something to get over. Loneliness is the knock knock, do something about this.
The solution to loneliness and isolation is relationship and community.
At every age, every stage of life, we need other people. We plan for retirement financially. We need to plan for retirement socially.
Think about yourself. You wouldn't want to be alone and lonely. Why would your mom or dad who's 60 or 70 or 80 want to be alone?
I think it's good for people to find someone they love, no matter what age they are.
This is the most important time that you invest in yourself because it's your last chance.
We're gonna bust out of that shell and start enjoying some life now. And we're gonna do it together.
Major funding for NPT Reports Aging Matters is provided by the West End Home Foundation, enriching the lives of older adults through grant-making, advocacy, and community collaboration. The Jeanette Travis Foundation, dedicated to improving the health and well-being of the Middle Tennessee community. The HCA Foundation, on behalf of TriStar Health. Cigna Health Spring. Additional funding provided by Jackson National Life Insurance Company, the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, and by members of NPT. Thank you.
We are social animals, connected by the relationships we build over a lifetime. But the process of aging can be isolating and put us at risk for loneliness. Retirement, the loss of a spouse, a change in health, moving away to be closer to family. It's easy to find ourselves in a situation where we need to work to create new relationships. Hi, I'm Kathy Mattea. On this episode of Aging Matters, we'll explore what it takes to find companionship and intimacy of all forms, and learn how our relationships impact our health and well-being. The following program will talk about all kinds of relationships and intimacy, including romantic companionship and discussions of sexuality and sexual activity as we age. We don't ever stop looking for love, emotional connection, or friendship, and now we're going to talk about it. After all, age is felt in the knees, not in the heart. Stay tuned.
When I first retired, I had things that I wanted to do. I really got kind of lazy. You can get intoxicated with doing nothing. You can be a hermit almost if you're not careful.
One of the things that's going on in America now is we have this huge population of aging Americans. And the thing that's interesting about this is that we do not have models for people living into their 80s and 90s or even to 100. And so now we have this new generation. It's an entire 20 years of what do I do now? How do I live now?
I don't want to lose sight on the things I used to do and the relationship I used to have. I'm still trying to fill in those hours during the day that I need to stay active. Oh, we got Vietnam. When I married Connie, I was going through a divorce. I was really losing myself, and I knew if I didn't have some type of companionship, I would drift off into whatever, okay? We've been married for 20 years, and we support each other in whatever we do. Yeah, that's me. I love my wife. I love to share things with her. But Connie is a indoor person. She don't care about bugs and snakes and stuff like that. Me, I just get out in the middle of it.
After serving in the military and a civilian career, Joe Murray found himself missing the friends and the camaraderie that had once surrounded him. Going it alone could only go so far.
I used to go out camping by myself, boating by myself, but now I can't do that anymore. So I'm looking for somebody to share that life with me, really.
Joe's search for companionship landed him at a lunch for retired men, sponsored by Mental Health America Mid-South and hosted at a 50 Forward location in Nashville. It was there that Joe Murray learned something that changed him. He wasn't alone.
And a lot of those men in this group was having problems. They was isolating themselves, they was depressed, they didn't know which way to do or what to go from there. And we all shared the same problem, I realized. And you'd be surprised how common it is when you start talking to other men. They pretty much living the same life that you are.
But not all men are doing something about it. In the U.S., women outlive men by an average of 5 years. Statistically, men are more likely to live with chronic disease, less likely to go to the doctor, and have weaker social networks than women. They are also less likely to go someplace like a senior center, which is one of the reasons 50 Forward is trying to figure out what men need and get them in the door.
I grew up in the 50s. In my high school years, of course, in Tennessee, there was a lot of segregation, racial disparity, poverty. I went in the military, I went to Germany. Guess what? It was there too. It was hard to make rank. I had to fight for every stripe I got. I went to Vietnam in '66 and came back in '67. That did not help my composure. I did have a divorce. I didn't communicate with my wife like I should have. And that came from my younger years, Vietnam. I was bitter. I just didn't want to communicate those things. Good to see you. Good to see you too.
There are still things Joe Murray doesn't feel comfortable talking about with his wife, Connie. But the friends he met at that 50 Forward lunch have given him an outlet for his thoughts and feelings.
Well, thanks you guys for being here today, as always.
Together, they formed a men's group led by Dan Surface. Their first work has been internal, trying to talk through where they are in life.
We live in that work world for so many years, and I think after we retire to kind of lose purpose, and lose meaning in our lives, because society doesn't help prepare us for that. Society said, get the gold watch, go away.
I'm looking for another horizon to keep my life exciting,
Yeah.
I can let things go with my men friend because I know they've gone through the same thing and they can relate to those things and, back and forth.
Where are you when it comes down to your being? Sometimes you may feel like you're doing okay, then you find yourself walking this isolated road by yourself.
A new guy came to the meeting and everybody went and gave him a hug. He said, y'all hug? Men don't hug, okay? I thought it was refreshing. It's something about love, compassion. I want to support you, help you if I can. It's something that men don't normally do.
I never led a very quiet life because I was always on the move. I still am. Whenever there's a death of someone you love, there's a gap, a space, I call it, that seems empty. And it never really totally gets filled up because you can't ever find an identical person. I came to Tennessee just after I had experienced 5 deaths in my family, including my mother and my brother, and then my son committed suicide. I needed desperately to be near one of my other sons. And I'm still struggling with my son's death.
Social relationships have a powerful impact on our physical health and ultimately our longevity. We had data from 148 studies, and what we found was that those who are more socially connected had a 50% increased odds of survival. What we found was we need to take our relationships just as seriously for our health as we take things like alcohol consumption, obesity, physical inactivity, air pollution, these other factors.
When Vera Balter moved to Tennessee, Her social network was limited to the relatives she moved to be near.
I had no relationships at all except my son, daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. And so I went out and I just did all different kinds of activities and made a conscious effort to get to the JCC for their luncheons. I think there's a little bit of forcing yourself to do things at first and giving yourself some talks about, if I stay in my apartment, no one's going to knock at my door.
Starting over later in life can present challenges when it comes to finding new relationships and maintaining the ones you have.
As we get older, unfortunately, we develop health issues, and that's a big preventative of going out and forming friendships. For me, my world shrank because I can no longer drive at night. You don't see as well, you don't hear as well. I don't have the energy that I used to have. So it has to be a gentler and more confined way of finding friends. Let's go. Walk.
But age also has its benefits.
One of the benefits of aging is that you have more time to listen and to be open with people and hear what they're really saying. I was with the dog, and a woman stopped to say hi to the dog, not to me, and she started talking about her dog that died. And I started giving sympathy because I could feel or imagine what it felt like to lose your dog. And then she opened up and said, well, I lost my husband at the same time. And so I took her hand and, expressed my sympathy. It's being responsive to openness in another person and yourself. Show your interest in someone else. Say, how are you today? Real small steps, but very important because you never know where they lead.
Building new relationships takes effort and sometimes means confronting barriers, whether they are self-imposed or created by those around us. Unfortunately, ageism is real, and a youth-centered society too often devalues or ignores the needs of older adults. Some people face additional layers of discrimination experienced across a lifetime.
For me, I grew up in the 50s in Alabama. And of course, did not know the term gay, but I did realize when I was 12 years old that I was physically attracted to boys my age, and I began to get a sense of what I was experiencing. And I didn't know what to do with it, but I did know that I couldn't talk about it. It had to be kept right inside.
For Mike Johnson, growing up gay meant growing up with a secret.
In the 1950s, early 1960s, being gay was a crime. It was a mental abnormality. And as well, it was if you were religious, it was a sin. And you essentially had no future as a gay man. So you kept that inside. You did not emerge as the person you potentially could be because you knew that would not work for you.
After college, Mike Johnson navigated a society opposed to who he is. Living with a secret took on a new meaning. In Mike's case, that meant hiding that he is gay, but not lying about it.
I accepted an officer's commission into the Air Force, and that's where I entered the real world and exited the insulated world of Alabama. Even though at that time, the military did not allow gays, period. There was no don't ask, don't tell. You could not be in the military and be gay. But believe me, you could, and many were. I was one among them.
In 1972, Mike met Ray.
At first, with both my family, my biological family down in Alabama, and as well as coworkers, Ray was my friend. Now, it never occurred to me to put a picture of Ray on my desk. Could I have done that successfully? I don't know, but it just never entered my mind. But little by little in my office, people began to wake up. They would say things like, well, what are you and Ray doing this weekend or whatnot?
We're gonna take some photos. You guys wanna go inside?
Let's go.
All right.
47 years later, they are still together, but a lot has changed.
Well, I'll tell you where I am. It's very comfortable with just being the two of us.
This looks like.
We had to live with concealing our true nature because it was just expected that you would conceal it. Now I don't feel that I have to conceal anything. If it came up that, are you married? I am. What do you and your wife do? I don't have a wife, I have a husband.
And you guys just kind of looking at each other right there. Yeah, that's great.
Meaning, I'm not hiding anything anymore.
No. I have family members that I have never come out to. This is when they're going to know for sure that I am gay. And this is kind of like a public coming out, I guess.
While LGBT older adults gained some important rights through the legalization of same-sex marriage in 2015, the limited studies looking at the concerns of gay elders show a legacy of discrimination continues to impact their quality of life. In terms of relationships, LGBT older adults are twice as likely to live alone as they age. When it comes to housing and long-term care, only 21 states have laws protecting against housing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity.
Going on with life, we have to realize that we're subjected to more and more likelihood of illness. I've gone through the loss of parents. I've gone through the loss of friends.
In the background, it's gonna really pop off.
We both knew in advance that since we didn't have children, that we bought long-term health care policies.
I love that.
Whether they're gay or straight, we've all got that same issue, aging, and somebody's going to have to take care of it.
There is a lot of, I don't want to say fear so much as concern that if we need assisted living, institutionalized care, nursing home, that we may indeed have to go back into the closet. So yeah, it's a real concern. I don't know though there's anything we can do about it except have friends or someone to monitor our care.
So many people have a preconceived notion of what a gay person is, and they probably knew a lot of gay people without realizing that they were gay. And it's just, get to know us, you'll like us, and put your prejudice behind. We just need to get to know each other.
One morning I went to tell my wife breakfast was ready and she had passed away. Total surprise. And I guess that's where our story starts.
Life is full of the unexpected. Before meeting each other, Frances and George Hahn were both in relationships that they considered to be the love story of their lives. But the deaths of their loved ones meant a closing of one chapter and the opening of another.
I called my kids, they came the next day, a funeral was arranged, and then they left. And suddenly I was in a 4-bedroom house all alone. It was grim, and I hated it. I sort of struggled pretty much on my own for a couple of months. Then in January, I started to call some single ladies that I had been acquainted with. That involved getting on the phone and calling pretty much a stranger, and that scared the hell out of me. Hello. If I was going to find a marriage partner, I'd have to have more social contacts than I did.
I did not picture myself becoming a widow. I met my late husband when I was 30 years old. I was madly in love. One of the things that happens when you become widowed is your married friends, many of them drop you because people are used to going out as couples, and that's how many of my friends were.
Unlike George, Frances had decided she would accept living the rest of her life as a single person. But a chance phone call and a little sympathy opened a new door in her life.
A friend of mine called me and said there was this recent widower who was very lonely, And would I be interested in meeting him? Well, by that time, I took pity on him. I felt, all right, I'll cook him a meal.
That meal almost didn't happen once she found out the lonely man was George.
My daughter looked him up because we knew he was a professor. And I said to her, I know him.
They had run into each other at an event at a local synagogue.
After a Sunday music program at the refreshment table, I saw him and I said, hi. And he ignored me. I said, the hell with him. Well, he hadn't heard me.
Fortunately, they got over that hurdle.
This initial falling in love thing is very special. And before you know it, we were hugging and kissing, and I said, this is crazy. We're acting like teenagers, and we're old folks. I was in love with you.
But once things got serious, concerns emerged from family members.
By June of that year, we went to meet his daughter.
Initially, the response was positive, but after a while, my daughters began to sense there were problems. My late wife had left her share of our combined estate to me. There was the concern that if I were to pass away before Frances, she would then inherit all my estate, and they would not inherit anything. Suddenly, this marriage became like a business proposition. It was not very nice.
I think with second marriages, that's probably very common, but we were not prepared for it. In George's case, because we married a year after his wife had died, that was a little soon for his daughters, because they were still grieving. You're still grieving for your parent, for your mother, and there's another woman in the house, and she's the one that greets you when you come to visit. It's a big adjustment. Hi. The ties between a child and a parent are so strong that they can continue. But it does require the child, particularly as adults, to realize that their parents have other needs and that they need to fulfill their whole being. Finding someone you love when you're young is very important and very exciting. But finding someone you love after you've been widowed is really special and should really be encouraged and fostered. I think it's good for people to find someone they love, no matter what age they are. And for people to be supportive of that and not feel threatened and consider the happiness of their parents.
In order to support the relationships of older adults, experts suggest we unlearn what society has told us about aging and take an honest look at reality.
We have been unprepared for a lot of aspects of our aging society, including what sex looks like in later life. This is a problem because sex is important for health. Most people, including people in later life, people with life-threatening illnesses, value their sexual function, and so we've got to get on board with the fact that older people, just like younger people, are sexual people.
Hi, everybody. How do we define sex?
These students at Vanderbilt School of Nursing are talking about sex, sexuality, and older adults.
What is under the umbrella of the term sex? And this is where you don't get to be shy.
Historically, we haven't done a great job addressing older adult sexual health or sexuality at all. Here in the United States in particular, I think we're a very youth-focused culture. When it comes to talking about our parents being sexually active, especially in older age, people get uncomfortable.
So let's talk a little bit about sexuality, sexual activity as a social justice issue.
There are literally physiological changes that go through your body when you are physically intimate, and I'm not necessarily even talking about having sex. I mean, just touch in and of itself, we know that touch is therapeutic. All of that is incredibly important to maintain a sense of connectedness, which we know is a big part of what makes all humans flourish, and it doesn't go away regardless of how old you are. This study looked at 57 to 85 years of age and talked about, are they still sexually active? Yes, the majority of them were, even up into their 80s, and that only 38% of men and 22% of women reporting having discussed sex with a physician since the age of 50. That's really low.
People think of older age as an asexual period of life. And that view is inconsistent with mounds of evidence. People are driven to hang on to all aspects of our function as long as we can. So if we think of older people as asexual, we're selling out a core part of their function. And that's dehumanizing. And dehumanizing people is not good for our society, whether it's an older person or a younger person, a man or a woman.
How is your patient?
What would I want my future nurse practitioner students to take away? At the very least, they're taking away an understanding of the importance of acknowledging the whole person, including their sexual health, and to not silence their patients through either not asking or not being comfortable about talking about these topics.
We have to figure out a way to normalize this, because this is the future. People are living longer. In 12 years, we're going to have 80 million older adults. 1/5 of our country will be 65 and older. 1/3 of our country will be 50 and older. You mean none of them are going to have relationships because they're older? Like, that makes no sense. But how do we change the conversation? We thrive in relationship with others.
As we age, we need to continue to push ourselves to grow, but we also need encouragement and support to remain connected to community. That takes all of us, and a shift in how we think about relationships as we age. To learn more and to see all of Nashville Public Television's Aging Matters series, visit wnpt.org/agingmatters. Thanks for watching.
Major funding for NPT Reports, Aging Matters is provided by the West End Home Foundation, enriching the lives of older adults through grant-making, advocacy, and community collaboration. The Jeanette Travis Foundation, dedicated to improving the health and well-being of the Middle Tennessee community. The HCA Foundation, on behalf of TriStar Health. Cigna Health Spring. Additional funding provided by Jackson National Life Insurance Company, the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, and by members of NPT. Thank you.